All right, folks, so Mars conjuncts Saturn in the sign of Aquarius in about 4 hours' time. I am recording this at 2:22 p.m. Wouldn't you know it, on 4/4/22. Goodness. And I think the Mars-Saturn conjunction is around a little bit after 6 p.m. Sorry, the time just kind of threw me off. It's funny when these kinds of things happen. So, irrespective, Mars conjunction Saturn in the sign of Aquarius in 3 or 4 hours' time. Mars is our vitality. It is the male planet. It signifies the male part of ourselves. It is the testosterone planet. So it archetypally stands for at least two of the standard things that we ascribe to the male part of our personality or to the male archetype, which is hunting and gathering and protecting. And insofar as Venus, the female archetype, is responsible for growth and nurture and flow, the male archetype is the one who goes out and hunts and gathers and provides and husbands and defends. Now, as I tend to say, with Mars, there are two things we absolutely always need to look at. One is the pursuit of goals, and the other is the implementation of boundaries. For both of these, because, Mars is the red planet and it's red-blooded, and at least when we talk about the pursuit of goals, the word desire I associate very, very strongly with Mars. Now, typically when we would look at things like relationships or sexuality, often it would be ascribed to Venus more than Mars. And I find that when it comes to passion and desire, it's really that Mars testosterone element in us that goes after what it wants, that likes to get what it wants. Now, where Mars is placed in your birth chart and the sign that it is in will very likely give you a sense of what your quality of Mars is. How do you go after what you want? What is your style? Irrespective, Mars standing for the pursuit of our goals, the pursuit of our desires, and then protection. And with both the pursuit of our goals and the drawing of boundaries, the word conflict can come up quite easily. And in fact, conflict does come up with Mars. When you are going after what you want, there can be competition. There can be others who don't want you to have for what you want. There can be that pursuit, that directness comes with a certain sense of selfishness, one could argue, and so it's likely that there are clashes or conversations or interactions that have a conflicty element to it. I'm talking about in the milder sense. And then, of course, when it comes to the drawing of boundaries, you wouldn't draw a boundary unless someone was attacking it. And injuries, accidents, Mars, the red planet, the drawing of blood, hurt, Mars and Saturn. Saturn, both these planets traditionally were considered the two malefics, the two unlucky planets, the two difficult planets. In today's context, in a Western context, they're looked on a little bit differently. And, so much of Western astrology is about playing with the energies of the planets and trying to work with them. Well, so is traditional astrology, but the means are a little bit different. And the understanding of the archetype and what needs to be harnessed becomes so important. Now, when when I was thinking about the title of this video, there were a couple of titles that came up that were pertinent, but perhaps not completely all-encompassing. One was the Johnny Mercer song, Something's Gotta Give. And in particular, I think the opening line of it is something to the extent, something like, when an irresistible force such as you meets an immovable object such as me, or something along those lines. And with Mars, the irresistible force of Mars meeting up with an immovable object like Saturn, one was reminded of that. The other word that, of course, came to mind was retaliation. And depending on where Mars and Saturn are in your chart, it could be you drawing lines, or someone could be drawing lines towards you. Let me keep expanding on this. at the end, it's hard not to think of the Mars-Saturn conjunction without taking into what is probably most sort of seems to exemplify it right now, the sort of Will Smith Oscars incident, right? You have a flash of testosterone, and Mars would be known for rashness and anger and impulsive actions and sort of these kind of hot-blooded moments. And with Saturn, which is the planet that we talk most about when we talk about things like karma or result or coolness or impartiality or consequence. Because with Saturn, as we've discussed so many times on this channel before, there's this sense of not leaning into the path of least resistance for yourself, making conscious choices. What are the right conscious choices that enable you to fulfill your fullest potential? Discipline, self-discipline. You've got a hot planet like Mars meeting up with a cool planet like Saturn. And so you do have this sense of, as we head into today, over the past 10 days or so, this kind of sense of a consequence, action and consequence. And so that certainly archetypally is one form of this. Would not surprise me at all if for many of us over the past 10 days, we have had our hot-blooded reactive moments. And Saturn, of course, prefers a response as opposed to a reaction. With Mars and Saturn on a positive side, on the positive element, it can also be an extraordinary transit when it comes to action and the pursuit of goals or the constructive building of something. Certainly taking action and responding to something and the pressure surrounding it and the flow surrounding it is probably the biggest thing I want to highlight in this video. We had a new moon in Aries not so long ago. That new moon was conjunct Mercury and conjunct Chiron, and as I mentioned, it occurred in Aries, so the ruling planet would be Mars. And we talked about in that video, which is the last video I did, the wound being activated wherever Aries sits in your chart and what house that occupies and what that stands for. And the process of communication somehow being integral to that wound being healed, and how you can't really heal a wound until you're made conscious of it. And getting conscious of it leads to a certain amount of discomfort. And the purpose of discomfort, or pain, of course, would be to get rid of it. And Mars is very much an action-oriented planet. And it was a new moon in Aries. So the new moon in Aries in and of itself is a much more active moon, is a much more active energy. And with Mars conjuncting Saturn, the thing is, whether you are doing the line drawing or whether someone is doing the line drawing with you, all of us are involved in some sort of line drawing. So it's likely that all of us are going to feel like, this is why I thought the word retaliation was interesting, because it was like we're all kind of retaliating towards each other, you know. Everyone's trying to take action, and I can't imagine that within that there aren't things that are looking to be solved or sorted out. So I would certainly say that this transit may very well encourage a certain amount of attack and defense, an attack that is a defense that is needed, a response to something. It could be linked to this woundedness that we're trying to heal, that we've been made conscious of, very much so. It could also somehow be linked to, you know, we're talking about Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, 3 consecutive signs. Now in a few days' time, Mercury will go into Taurus, so we'll have a 4th sign activated too. And for a period of time, as I've mentioned, the planets, because they're so close together, we've seen action really in Aquarius Pisces for a while, then Aquarius Pisces Aries recently, as that started to open up, and now Taurus will start to open up soon. Welcome to kind of get things spread out a little bit. But the Mars conjunction with Saturn is the last of the personal planets conjunctions with Saturn, and the last of the really kind of intense activity in Aquarius, a sign that has been active for us since the end of 2020 when Saturn came into Aquarius. And last year could have seen the end of a 12-year cycle and the start of a 12-year cycle related to the sign of Aquarius. So we could have seen some auspicious new beginnings in the sign of Aquarius and where it sits in your chart and the house it occupies. Certainly a need to tackle things in the sign of Aquarius to enable, as I've said a lot of times on this channel, to enable the authenticity that is being developed in the sign of Taurus, with Uranus in Taurus and Saturn in Aquarius squaring Uranus in Taurus for much of last year, and that square still being mildly active for a lot of this year. And of course, the eclipses and the nodes have moved into Taurus as well. So we're really being asked to, from an overall broad perspective, if there's one thing you would say, what should I focus on? I would say the Taurus part of your chart. That's where the North Node eclipses are. That's where you're going to develop. That's where energy needs to be poured. That's where work needs to be done so that life can continue to unfold in a flowing path for you. So the question then becomes, what is it? Because with squares, the faster moving planets, I find, need to accomplish something to unlock and continue to enable the planets they're squaring. So whether it was a retrograde Mercury or the Sun or the new moon in Aquarius or Venus in Aquarius, Venus conjuncted Saturn. Venus is still in Saturn but moves into Pisces tomorrow. Venus conjuncting Saturn on March the 27th, and then us leading to, that's interesting, right? March the 28th. Hey, how interesting. Venus, the planet of relationships, money, flow, conjuncting Saturn. I think the Oscars were like on the 27th, something like that, irrespective. And then Mars conjuncting Saturn. So there could be a sense of something brewing even into the 20s of March as you headed towards the 27th that now has a sense of response or consequence to it. That I might, if I were really to explore and talk to 100 or 1,000 people right now or run a survey, I would really try and put my finger on that. What has been going on in terms of relationships? And Saturn is always associated with testing us. Now, let me start to summarize this, because I don't want this necessarily to be a long video. It's Mars conjunct Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn continues to be in Aquarius till March 2023. We have to watch our step where the sign of Aquarius is so that we don't fall into, I'll say it again, patterns and behaviors that have been holding us back, that are not suiting us, that are a little bit ingrained, and what I will call, and what I describe as the path of least resistance for us. Because Saturn will continue to test us and give us consequences until we figure out what we need to master in the Aquarius part of our chart. Choices are important, choices and consequences are important, and we're laying a foundation. And with Saturn, whatever's happening can have an impact for a long period of time. So when we deal with Mars conjuncting Saturn, if we're going to talk in terms of boundaries needing to be implemented, I would certainly use this energy to see where does that boundaries need to be implemented and do so in a way that Saturn would approve of. You might find that someone is implementing boundaries on you or punishing you or delivering a consequence to you based on their perception of, whether real or imagined, your aggression towards them. You very well also may be feeling like you need to respond to something to draw boundaries based on someone's perceived aggression towards you. The aggression may be real, it may be perceived. We often tend to feel like when someone is blaming us for something, it's a perception, but when something's happening to us, it's real. With Saturn, it pays not to be impulsive, but it also pays not to, depending on what your patterns and behaviors are. And for some of us, it may be that we ignore boundary setting. For some of us, it may be that we can become a little volatile in boundary setting. So what is it for you? Because it will have consequence. But at the same time, there's something about the energy of this that requires the building of a strong foundation. So boundaries may need to be set, that you may need to respond to something. Now, I'll say this on the more positive aspect of the positive side of this, which is it's a great energy to execute on. And this is the thing, whether it's the pursuit of if you feel like, Abby, you're doing this video and you're telling me this and it's 4 hours and I'm getting to it after Mars and Saturn have already conjuncted, I would say the energy is hanging around us till the end of April, because it's encoded into this new moon in Aries. And as I said, the new moon is ruled by Mars. Mars is conjuncting Saturn. And also Mars and Saturn are squaring the nodes. You know what? Whatever needs to be done in the sign of Aquarius is really important and necessary. And it could be either or a combination of the pursuit of goals in this Aquarius part of your chart, or the setting up of boundaries in this Aquarius part of your chart. And it is absolutely essential in order for you to unlock the Taurus part of your chart. There, I've actually fallen on my sword for something. I would do it in a Saturnian, responsible, non-impulsive way, but sometimes a Saturnian, non-impulsive way, it might be politer than smacking someone, which I can't recommend, but it could also be more effective when what is being delivered is more thoughtfully articulated and clear and can't really be argued with and polite, but sets the boundary where it needs to be set. No, thank you. Please stop. A more Saturnian response utilizing the Mars impulse. When planets conjunct, they have a conversation with each other. The planet of action and drive and passion is talking to our teacher that is obsessed with our mastery of this time-space reality, this 3D reality. Saturn is not about dreams. It is not about astrology. It is not about faith. It is about chopping wood every day and constructing our own reality based on self-disciplined. That's the word. That's the word. Discipline around pursuit of goals, discipline around the setting of boundaries and appropriate responses. And if you feel like, oh my God, I haven't been able to get to it, let's say someone does something as a result of this transit as you head into it over the next 4 hours, and you find the next couple of days, you come upon this video, because it's going to change your life apparently, and you say, oh my, you've still got the month to go ahead and do what needs to be done. You know, it's sort of encoded in this new moon that is about healing. So just consider if you feel like there's a fortress that needs to be protected, and if there's action that needs to be taken around it, how can you do it in a disciplined manner? But the emphasis is on two parts of that: the doing of it, which is Mars conjunct Saturn, and in a disciplined manner. And discipline, self-mastery, self-control. Okay, whether it is the pursuit of goals in the Aquarius part of your chart, what is working, what is not working, is it done, is it not? And it has been a long time coming. All of 2021 somehow feeds into this, at least. At least. All of 2021 somehow feeds into this. It's really interesting when when Saturn leaves Aquarius next year in 2023, it's going to be right after Aquarius season. So at least, you know, we're going to have, the personal planets will be making their way through Aquarius. We're going to have some sort of a summary of all this at that time. But I would not wait until then. I would see if there are places, if you know your chart and you know where Aquarius sits, and you know what house it occupies and what that stands for, if there are things that need to be done, actions that need to be taken, the things that you're dissatisfied with, I'm saying it for the umpteenth time, or boundaries that need to be drawn, fine, go for it. If you don't know your chart, if you feel like you need to respond to something, by all means, do it in a polite, disciplined, clear, effective way that is measured and imbued with self-mastery. Okay, I will leave it at that, and feel free to like the video, comment on it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button so that you know whenever I do new videos and you're notified of it. Okay, I will see you later. Bye.